Actually,
Yeah, right.
Okay. So that's really helpful. They can do so many things at P and Z that you really can't do out here. The council is always talking and people bringing in ideas.
Yeah.
Dylan? Good. Yeah. Yeah. There you go.
All right.
Yeah, because it's more like.
You guys ready over here? Let's go ahead and call to order. We'll call to order city council regular business meeting Thursday. Sorry, my bad. I should have waited for the recording in progress message. We will call to order city council regular business meeting for Thursday, May 15th, 2025. It is 6 p.m. Lynn, or Haley, would you call the roll?
Councilmember Baker. Brown.
Here.
Poole.
Here.
Livingston. Here. Meineke.
Here.
And Mayor Phillips.
I'm here. We do have a quorum, so we'll move on. Item number 2 is the Pledge of Allegiance. Would you please rise and say the Pledge of Allegiance with me? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Item number 3 is approval of the agenda. Would anybody like to move any of the consent agenda items to the regular agenda? Hearing none, can I get a motion to approve the agenda? Motion. Okay, motion by Meineke and Brown, second by Livingston. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same. That motion carries. Item number 4 is welcome of guests and public comment. Thank you for being here tonight, participating in your local government. We'd open up the dais at this point in time for public comment for non-agenda items. We'll give you a 3-minute time limit. Realize that we can't take action on those items tonight because they aren't a part of the agenda, and that would be a violation of the open meetings law. Also, if you'd like to comment on any item in the consent agenda, now would be the time. So go ahead. You can come up and state your name and address. That'd be great.
Hi, my name is Todd Bordenero and I live at 102 Brayburn Circle. I've lived in the community since 2017. My wife and I built that home and we really were attracted to living in a cul-de-sac, and also back behind the area, it was a completed wooded area with a detention area, which we later learned was a water storm drain detention pond. Over the years, it is built up on its own in its beauty, and it's a really great green space. There's been a lot of wildlife, a lot of birds and different kinds of wildlife, and also too, it really helps with privacy, noise, lighting on Wright Road with the storage facility that's over there. And it really buffers all the traffic and noise, even from Highway 28. Back late 2018-19, there was a development that came in over to the east, and they built more housing. And at that time, I worked with Luke Nelson, and I think even people of city council, and I ended up planting some additional trees in that area. I gave a map where I marked where I had planted them. Well, last fall, a neighbor had a complaint, which is fine. It's no big deal. The vegetation grew onto his fence line, and Parks and Rec came in and took out all that vegetation. At that time, unfortunately, a lot of my trees got removed. It wasn't even 10 or 20 feet close to the fence line, so it could have been not eliminated and bulldozed. But I worked with Dakota Springer Parks and Rec, who's responsible for that area. And he said that he would look at trying to replace them. Now he's saying that it's not in the budget. And all I'm asking today is to put on the agenda for further discussion, the opportunity for me to in kind replant those trees and use my own resources and funds to rebuild that area. The other thing is, I know there's some invasive species in that area. I just want to make sure that that's maintained and controlled, but also that we build up and try to help keep that area thriving. It's one of the only areas that has a really lot of green trees and space in the Orchard Trail area. And it's beautiful to look at. Thank you.
Can you clarify for me what your ask is? I know you want us to, your ask is to put it on the agenda, but what is your ask? Because I didn't fully understand.
I'm sorry,
That's okay.
I'm asking if I could go back and replant myself the trees in those areas.
Thanks for clarifying for me.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Hearing none, we will go ahead and move on. Item number 5 is presentations. Dylan Mullenix is here from the Des Moines MPO, or the Metropolitan Planning Organization. Before you get started, I'd like to thank you for all your work on getting the I-435 across the finish line at the Iowa House. And
I wish I could take all the credit, but yeah, I appreciate it.
yeah, no, that's good.
All right, well, thanks for having me tonight, Mayor and members of the council. Dylan Mullenix, I'm the Executive Director of the Des Moines Area Metropolitan Planning Organization. We like to come out every so often and just give a quick update of who we are, what we're doing, some of the projects we're working on, just so that you're all aware of this. We're a member organization. Norwalk is a member. Councilmember Brown is the representative and he does a great job. I just want to make sure everybody else is kind of has a chance to ask questions or hear what's going on. So want to just quick outline a few things that I'll talk about. We went through a strategic planning framework earlier this year. And so we have kind of 4 core areas. And so I'll talk about those 4 core things in this presentation is kind of how it's structured. So starting off.
Oh, sorry, I clicked over to,
Yeah,
there we go.
thank you. Starting off looking at more governance and operations and just giving a recap of what an MPO is. MPOs are federally required transportation planning organizations. And they started out back in the 1960s when the interstate system was being built as a way for all of the communities, the partners, the DOT, transit agencies and so forth to get together and have that conversation of how is this going to affect our region. So they're required in urban areas over 50,000 in population. And the MPO is really the board of the MPO. So it's representatives from the communities and all of your peers. And like I said, the Department of Transportation and so forth that get together and really study, plan, and fund transportation projects. There are 9 of them in the state of Iowa, so we are one of 9. And the one thing that makes us a little bit unique is all of the other ones are either part of some sort of regional council or a council of governments, or within a city. Ames MPO is within the city of Ames. We are the only one that's sort of an independent, only looks at regional transportation issues. So just a fun fact there. We have 20 member communities in the MPO, and you can see there's a dark line on that map. That is the planning area boundary. So any community over 3,000 in population that's within that planning area boundary can be a member of a full voting member. City of Cumming, for example, is within that boundary that they're below 3,000 in population, so they are an associate member. That means they have a seat at the table. They don't pay dues, but they also don't get all the access funding in particular that all of the other members have. We are a 2080 organization, so even though we're federally required, it is locally derived. We get to set our own rules and membership and bylaws and rules of engagement. In terms of our structure, there's a lot going on that diagram there. There's really the 3 key committees are the ones in the middle there. So a technical committee and then a policy committee. And within that policy committee, a subset of that is an executive committee. Every community gets to pick who they want to serve on that. So on your technical committee, it's Paris. On your policy committee, like I said, Councilmember Brown. It's up to the communities of who you want to put on there. Most do city council members, mayors, city staff. Some just put random, not random, but members of the public on there as well. I'll also point out the bottom left, that kind of yellow, those yellow boxes, these are advisory committees. So there's one on bicycle pedestrian, there's one on freight, there's one on environment. All that to say that we have different topic areas that if you or members of the public or your staff or whoever, they have an opportunity to participate. That's open to whomever wants to participate. That's a way we do some public engagement. Over the last year or so, we've been doing a lot of strategic planning and trying to improve the organization. I stepped into the executive director role, even though I've been here for 19 years, stepped in the executive director role a little over a year ago. And this was something that I wanted to do, is really make sure that we are optimizing the organization. So we looked at how our board structure works and did some governance review. Nothing substantial came out of that, but we had a good assessment. We also looked at our staffing to make sure we have the right people in the right places, making the right amount of money, those sorts of things, making sure we're being good stewards of public dollars. And then we turned our attention this last year, or the last several months, to strategic direction. So what are the key things we're going to be looking at over the next 18 months as an organization? Obviously, we do transportation planning, and that's a separate plan, but as an organization, what are we going to do? And then we took a look at our mission, vision, guiding principles. I've got those up there on the screen. I'm not going to read them off to you. But you can see really what the MPO is all about. These weren't substantial changes to what we've had previously, but the guiding principles are new. That's something we hadn't had before, but we thought it was important to put good guardrails for the organization. Any questions about some of that organizational framework first before I move on? Give you a second.
Does this include rail transportation?
Yeah, so the MPO looks at pretty much everything in transportation except for aviation. That's really the one area we don't touch. So roads, bridges, transit, rails, a little bit of rail. That's not a huge part, but it is part of it. So like I said, we are federally required. So looking at the federal requirements, there's really just a handful of key things that are spelled out in the US code that we have to do. One, and probably the most important one, is a long-range transportation plan. We have to do that every 5 years. So last time we did that was just this last November. We approved that. And the important thing with that is any project that you as a community want to receive federal funding for, whether that's through the MPO, through the DOT directly, congressional earmark, whatever it is, has to be in that plan or justified by that plan. So that's important as you look ahead. You want to make sure your projects are in there. Once they are funded, then they go into what we call a TIP, or a transportation improvement program. And that's really like your capital program you have at the local level. Just kind of lays out the next 4 years of projects that will happen. We have a work program. That's really our scope of work as an organization and how we're going to use federal funds and what our budget looks like. And then we have to explain how we're going to engage with the public and provide access to the planning process. That's our public participation plan. The big thing that is probably of interest to all of you is funding. The MPO receives about $20 million of funding annually just by existing. We don't have to apply to this. Just by being an MPO in good standing, we get that amount of money based on our size. We then turn around and award that money to our member communities. So every year there's a process we go through where your community applies. There's a selection of that, and it's a selection of your peers. So there's city council members and so forth from among the communities that serve on the MPO that make that decision or make that recommendation anyway. And then they're awarded. So there are 3 main programs. The Surface Transportation Block Grant Program is the big one. That's 18 of the $20 million right now. And you can see there on that box on the right, that table on the right, how those funds are typically awarded. So some of it goes to system capacity. That's new roads or expanding existing roads. Bridge replacement or repair, major reconstruction. So this isn't filling potholes. This is like major reconstruction that doesn't change the capacity of the roadway, but it changes the structure of the roadway. System optimization. This can be roundabouts, signals, turn lanes, things that help traffic move better, but doesn't make it substantially bigger in terms of its capacity. And then we give some funds to transit for bus purchases or other capital improvements. The other 2 programs, one is called the Transportation Alternative Program. It's about $1.5 million a year. That goes to trails, bike ped facilities, safe routes to schools, and so forth. And then right now there's something called the Carbon Reduction Program. That's a new program that was put in with the infrastructure, the IIJA, if you're familiar with that, the bipartisan infrastructure law. That's probably going to be a one-time only thing for that bill. And once, just with the way the administration is going in Congress, that's probably going to come out, is what we've been told. That's about a $1.5 million a year as well. Looking at what we've awarded over the last 5 years, you might find of interest. So you can see all the communities there, and I've highlighted Norwalk. In terms of that benefit ratio over there on the right, in terms of what you've paid in assessments and pay $1 per capita in assessments compared to what you're getting out, you're a little low. And I'll point out that there's only been one application over that time period, and it was awarded. So it's not for lack of the MPO not providing the money, it's just a lack of applications to the MPO. So something I've talked to staff about.
Next year, Dylan.
And I'll get to some other things that we're doing that might bring some money in here in a moment, but yeah, just wanted to highlight that in case there are any questions. We want to do more besides just funding though. And so there are some other services that we provide. Something new that we've been doing the last few years is providing access to data. There are a lot of data products out there that can help everybody do their jobs, whether it's at the MPO or at the city level. So rather than everybody doing it on their own, we do the contract for that and we make access available to all of the city staffs. So these are a couple programs that we have out there. Streetlight is more for road data. City data is more for bicycle pedestrian data. So if you want to know how many people are using a trail in your community, you can go on that city data and find that information. We also have more manual trail counters that we put out all over the community. And I don't know if you have one here in town or not, but that's something we're looking at as well. And we already have some and we're buying more to go throughout the community, knowing that that's a big asset for our region. We want to know how many people are using them and where they're using them. Something else that kind of helps the trail system is called a data bike. We started this about 10 years ago where we have a bike that has a lot of sensors and cameras and stuff on it that we go out and we ride all the, we don't, an intern goes out and rides these trails and collects that data. And we can take that data so that you don't have to spend time going out there understanding where do we have cracks in the concrete. We can collect that for you, analyze it, even start forecasting that out. You know what to put in your budget if you want to maintain, improve, whatever it might be with your trail system. Then we do a host of other things. We help with grant writing, grant management, travel demand modeling. In addition to trail pavement analysis, we also do it for roadways. So we can analyze existing roadway pavement and then help them budget that out, forecast it out so they help them to know what you should be putting in for maintenance and so forth. And again, these are services that are available to all communities as being a member of the MPO. So if you're not getting the funding, that is not always the thing people want or need or have access to, but hopefully some of these other things make it worth your time. And then I'll close by talking about a couple of projects. The MPO's had a good track record over the years of applying and receiving federal funding through discretionary programs that we have to compete with. The one that we've been working on for the last 18 months or so, last time I was here in October of 23, we were just getting it started, is the Safe Streets and Roads for All. And with that funding, we received $1 million from the US DOT and we created a comprehensive safety action plan. The MPO approved this plan back in March, just a few months ago. By having that plan, the region now qualifies for implementation dollars through the same program. We can get up to $25 million. All the communities within the MPO now qualify for that. So what we are doing is putting together a regional package of projects to hopefully receive some funding through that. And I'll show you here in a moment, we've got a combination of construction projects, a couple more studies, a few educational campaigns. But on this list, there is a project in Norwalk. That's a Sunset Drive pedestrian improvements. That is one that will be in that package of projects that we go to DC and apply for and hopefully receive from the US DOT. In addition to those construction projects and kind of specific corridors, we'll also be doing a lot of regional projects. So we're still trying to figure out exactly what those will look like. But think flashing crosswalk signs by schools. They can kind of go all over the place. There will be opportunity to put those here in town as well. We'll do roadway safety audits. So doing more specific corridor studies so we can understand what needs there might be. And then from that, different treatment types will be identified as those corridor studies go on. So those will also be available with all communities, including Norwalk. That will be, back up real quick, that will go before the MPO next week for approval, and then we will subsequently submit the application by the end of June. And then finally, as the mayor referred to, the future 425, this is the US 565 bypass. Really good news earlier this week that it passed the Senate. So it's passed both the Iowa House and the Iowa Senate to do an exemption on the minimum speed limit. We also had very productive meetings while we were in Washington, DC last week for a partnership trip that they are prepared to do action that needs to happen at the federal level to a weight limit exemption. So we have both the speed limit at the state and the weight limit at the federal level. that will clear the path to move this along to the interstate. A few more steps have to happen. One thing, as part of the state legislation, it directed the Iowa DOT and the MPO to do a alternative study to look for where are other opportunities for slow moving vehicles to go. What corridors can be used? They don't have to use this facility anymore. It gives them the exemption to be on the facility until we identify that alternative, or until that alternative is available to them. And then there's some technical analysis and other, administrative things that have to happen to actually make that request to make it an interstate, but it's well on its way. Very positive news. That's what I have for you, and I went through that kind of quickly, I think, but if there's any questions, please let me know about any of that or anything else you might be about.
The 435, is that, what's the slowest speed then, or is?
So right now, on part of the corridor, there's a minimum speed limit, and part of it, there's not. This would make it so that if it becomes an interstate, it would have no minimum speed limit. Most interstates have a 45-mile-an-hour minimum.
Yeah.
This would take away that minimum, so the slow moving vehicles could still use it until an alternative is available.
10 miles, it could be 5 miles now.
Right.
Oh, okay.
There are other things that are going on with the DOT in particular, it's more in their court, to put flashing signals and things like that to alert the motoring public that there are slow moving vehicles, and to try to still improve safety, even if it's on an interstate. So understanding that that could be dangerous to put slow moving vehicles on an interstate, even though they're already there. If it's an interstate, traffic will increase most likely. So we're still doing some things to address the safety.
We sure appreciate your help with that project. 435 project.
Well, right back at you. I mean,
Yeah,
that's
it's
good
important to us.
Support.
And that, that bike really got my attention. I'm liking that. That's pretty slick.
Yeah, we actually have a couple of bikes now, because it's in demand, so.
I think you got to volunteer to ride some trails.
Well, thank you very much.
Thanks, Dylan.
Finland's-
Yep. Okay, item 6, proclamations. For this month, we have the Emergency Medical Services Week and National Public Works Week. Please go out and check those out. They will also be posted to social media. Item 7 is a consent agenda. Can I get a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Okay, so motion by Brown. I'm going to give Livingston a second. I heard her first. Caitlin, would you call roll?
Councilmember Brown,
Yes.
Cool,
Yeah.
Livingston. Yes. Meineke,
Yes.
All right, that motion carries. Item 8, we have old and new business for consideration, discussion, and possible action. Item A, it's a public hearing regarding the fiscal year 2025 budget amendments. So we'll open up the public hearing at 6:22 PM. So every May, we conduct this type of hearing to amend our budget for the year. This public hearing is to give an added level of transparency and review to see the comprehensive impact of budget amendments. Couple things. Number one, amendments do not change the tax rate and will be paid utilizing reserves, grants, and or contributions. Number two, amendments have been formally approved by City Council throughout the year. Our financial policies do require that. Number three, a separate resolution approving the amended transfers is necessary, and this is a state requirement. The resolution must state which funds are transferring money, which funds are receiving the transfers, and the reason for that transfer. And number four, we have the CIP amendment is large due to projects that cross fiscal years. And that's where the budgeted full amount 1 year, but it's not spent. Therefore, it needs to be re-estimated for the next year. So Luke and Lindsay, anything to add?
Anything?
No. Lindsay, have we received any oral or written comments on this?
We have not.
Okay, any public comment? Hearing none, we'll go ahead and close public hearing at 6:23 PM. Item 8B is a resolution approving the fiscal year 2025 budget amendment. So we just went over the budget amendment, and these are adjustments for our revenues and expenses. And in the packet, there are explanations for each of those items. Luke and Lindsay, is there any further clarification needed?
Not for me.
All right, any discussion, comments, questions from council? Or public comment then?
Motion.
Second.
Got a motion by Livingston, a seconded by Cool. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Caitlin, would you call roll?
Councilmember Cool,
Yes.
Livingston.
Yes.
Meineke.
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
All right, that motion carries. Item 8C is a resolution approving the city of Norwalk amended budget transfers for fiscal year 2025. So we also went over the budget transfers for the fiscal year, and those are also in your packet. Luke and Lindsay, anything to add?
No.
Nope. Okay, any discussion, questions from council or public comment?
Motion.
Second.
Golly, it happens at the same time. I got a motion by Livingston, seconded by Meineke. Any further discussion? Caitlin, would you call roll?
Councilmember Livingston,
Yes.
Minneke.
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Cool.
Yes.
All right, that motion carries. Item 8D is a resolution approving the amended final plat of Hughes Century Crossing plat number 10. So this area is between Subway and High Road. The original plat was approved prior to obtaining some easements that are needed between the two lots, lot 1 and lot 2. This amendment adds the easements to the final plat. Luke, I'll turn it over to you.
Nothing else to really add. It's pretty
Okay,
simple.
discussion,
Final
questions?
I'm not. Right, so there's a,
That it?
These
They
are the
wanna
easements.
Split something? I'm trying to
So
understand.
the
what
the easement
map
crosses two different lots.
Well,
Go ahead, Jim.
basically what we're talking about is the lot 1 and lot 2 is approved by council. And the original proposal that the council first looked at was on the south part of lot 2. Where we don't have any red or purple square. There was a joint access easement in there. Okay. And the owners of lot 2 and the owners of the lot 2 from plat 6 that's down below could not get together to legally arrange for that easement. So now they've come to some other agreement regarding access there that engineering and city staff is okay with. So basically what we're saying is that we want city council, because the last time city council approved it, there was a easement down there at the south part of lot 2. In actuality, there's not going to be an easement there on the south side of that lot 2. So we're asking you to reapprove it because it's council's approval that ultimately sets the final plat.
Okay, so it's not actually, for all practical purposes, it's not changing anything.
The only thing is changing is that the last time you looked at it and voted for it, it had an easement there. Now, none of the owners there want the easement. The city's okay with it being gone, and ultimately, this board has to approve it. That's the approval. So
So it's more technically.
absolutely, yes.
Okay, that's the part that I was struggling to understand.
Okay.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Thank you for asking, Jim. If you struggle with it technically, there's another.
Any public comment?
Motion.
Okay, got a motion by Livingston.
Second.
Okay, seconded by Meineke. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Caitlin, would you call the roll?
Councilmember Minneke,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Cool,
Yeah.
Livingston,
Yes.
All right, that motion carries. Item 8E is a resolution approving the site plan of Hyper Energy Bar. So this site plan is for the area we just amended for the easements. As you can see in the drawings, the north entrance for the parking lot is partially on the northern lot, which is where there's an easement there. Luke, I'll turn it over to you.
Yep. So that previous item was brought about because of this site plan. Hyper Energy Bar sits on lot 2 from the previous one. If you look at the southern part of that, you can see how there's a ghosted in driveway. That's kind of the agreement that we are able to work out between the two property owners for how we would allow it to access Hughes Drives as a city and how the hyper site would work. And then that northern property line is the one that was shared between lots 1 and 2 where that easement exists. And you can see with this site, those access points are pretty critical to it. Hyper Energy Bar is a drive-through service user that has opposing drive-throughs. So you have cars that would circle and go north through the drive-through and cars that would circle back to the west and go south through the drive-through. So that circulation is important to their site. They also, with the proximity to the ball fields, anticipate a decent amount of pedestrian traffic from folks that will come over and use that. So I think they've got this model was a little bit bigger of a model from their building footprints that has a service counter on the north end of the building. And then you can see in that green space, there's some patio space they built out, sidewalk coming from the sidewalk on Hughes Drive and all of that. So worked a lot with them on this site plan to try to make sure we could achieve their goals of good vehicular movement through the site, but then also understanding that we're right adjacent to something that's going to generate a lot of pedestrian use. And so I feel like we've come to a good compromise on how that'll work.
See all these maps, but can you show me where?
Yes.
So the property to the north will have a shared entrance.
Yes.
And the property to the south will have private.
Correct. Yeah, and as Luke pulls this up here, you'll be able to see kind of the context of those three lots south of the Gordon Retail Building, between High Road and that Gordon Retail Building. And Hyper is that center one that he's circling now.
Okay.
This has nothing to do with the plat or the site plan, but I just want to point out, and this could come in an agenda item later, but that sidewalk comes up to that northern lot, stops. I assume we'll put the sidewalk, did you ever check that?
You're talking about the Highway 28 trail, correct? Yes, I did get with Wayne, and I thought maybe it was part of that widening project on Cherry, but it is not.
Okay.
We're doing stuff along Cherry, but not anything along Highway 28.
There's gonna be a gap in the sidewalk from Cherry to after these buildings are built here. And there's no buildable land left to do, so I think we need to put in a sidewalk there or a bike trail, whatever it is.
On the west side, so.
Yeah, west side, yeah.
You want to draw in.
Go down beyond the developable property.
Kind of, did you want me to draw in, would you say? what
Yeah,
he's
so like
talking
the
about,
bike
sidewalk?
trail on Highway 28, following the diagonal down to Cherry is what George is talking about. There's those two lots there that aren't developable. So there's not a project that's going to happen at the city where we can say, hey, developer, build that trail.
Yeah.
This property, because it doesn't back up to Highway 28, isn't required to do it. The property to the north, when it does it, we could maybe get them to do, 5-10 feet of it right up there by it. But for the most part, it's not anything that's going to fall on somebody else's obligation.
And again, nothing to do with the site plans, but at the same time, a lot of kids coming across the street. You can get across the street over toward that strip mall and then down on High Road. But everything in between is gonna run across at your own risk. Scenario, so
If you,
I don't know if there's anything you can do about that, or I just kind of comes to mind if you see a bunch of kids come storming across there, so.
Right, that's exactly what I'm thinking too. That's my concern with this is like, so right, we're widening, isn't this right where we're widening the road? So we're widening the road, we're putting I don't know, presumably at times, high traffic drive-through right by a sidewalk and a bike trail. That's when I'm trying to get a better picture of how all this looks. Cause I don't like this at all unless I have a better understanding.
Let me step through a few things. So this is the parcel where the Hyper Energy Bar will go. Their access will come off of this road. Exit. Or I might have those vice versa, but essentially that's where the access point.
Yeah, it'll be able to do both.
Go in and out.
Right. The new project that we're doing, widening Cherry, Wayne, please jump in if I'm saying this incorrectly, but it involves a new sidewalk as well as the turn lane that comes up to here. And what George is referring to is this gap of these pink lines that George brought this up to me earlier in an email, and I suggested that now would be a good time for that to come up to council. I think you were gonna bring it up under future agenda items later, so we can think about doing a change order into our Cherry Street project to add that section. But in terms of the current project proposal, the building on those other plans, should use different colors. Actually, these are perfect colors, red and yellow. This is where that building will be located on that parcel.
Right, and so then follow the yellow lines that you started here, right? I know everybody can't see that, but follow the yellow lines, because they're gonna come around that building.
This is one or two of the lanes, and then one of the lanes comes on this side of the building.
Yep.
And so I'll clear this and I'll bring up.
Wait, before you clear it.
Okay.
Okay, so then what is the outside, right? So your exterior border, your exterior yellow border. What is that? What is that border? What is there a border around that property? I guess that's what I'm trying to
Like,
understand.
you're wanting to know like how far it is away from,
No,
so, okay.
I mean,
You wanna-
yes, but what
No,
is
no,
there a
no.
fence? Is
No,
there a big
yep.
curb? Or there are
Yeah.
tons of bushes? What is the buffer between pedestrians and the cars and the people who aren't paying attention on foot, on bike, in a vehicle?
Sure.
What is that buffer? That's what I want to
So,
know.
let me pull up the landscape plan to see what plantings, if any, are back there. From the edge of the pavement, the farthest western edge of the pavement, to the property line there was a 30-foot setback. So that closest lane to that corner would be 30 feet from their property line. I'd have to get out and measure what, everything
Right,
else
30 feet
was.
is 10 yards. Do I have that right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, so that's nothing.
Give me a second, I can tell you more, because that's just to their property line, and then there would be potential.
Luke, it doesn't look, from this plan, it doesn't look like they have any landscaping plan
No, and they did
on the
not.
exterior of those drive aisles, if I'm looking at this correctly.
So from the middle of the lot to the edge of Cherry and Sunset Drive is 120 feet, so that'd be 150 feet from the middle of the drive over to like the intersection of Cherry. The probably shortest distance of any of it would be or probably in that southwest corner, would guessing where the new road's gonna be would be about 30 feet from that that curve on the southwest corner to that road. Yeah, to what the red that he's driving there. That's not a great measurement, but
For a bike to, for,
Go ahead, Mayor.
for a
Sorry.
bike to get onto there, they're gonna have to go cross country, or they're gonna have to go around to the east and come in off the sidewalk.
correct. Yeah. It wouldn't be connected with pavement, but yeah.
Really, really want this area to develop with every possible business and every possible amenity we can have. This is too much and too close for me. I just can't get behind this.
My concern, and I could be, it's just a concern, somebody can tell me I'm completely wet, is just on the crossings from the field over to this area. You have to go, there's a one map that was there, it showed the crossing of the crosswalk down the high road. And the next one is clear back, I guess, on the opposite side of the strip mall. As to the north.
Yes.
And it just seems like, yeah, there's a picture. So you go clear to the what's that, Gordon Avenue? And then you can clear down the high road and all the kids are, I assume where the green stuff is. And they're gonna be storming across high road to get their hyped up stuff. And then
Well, they're going to the dentist just to the north.
I'm
or
already hear people, I already hear a ton of people complaining about that lower red box you have and how people aren't stopping, how people are barreling through that area, how unsafe people feel already it in that, and if you right at the High Road and Cherry Parkway intersection, I already hear that from so many people. And to add a business so close, it just makes me too uncomfortable.
I was just wondering if there was a way to put something in the middle, a crosswalk type that, and I have no idea what I'm talking about. I'll just leave it at that. So.
Right? I mean, I
Yeah.
agree if there's something that we can do to mitigate.
I think we're
Really,
talking-
basically about looking in the middle of
Drive.
middle of the fields there, because they're gonna come storming across there.
Yep.
Getting away from their folks and,
Your likely scenario to do something like that, George, would be, I think what Luke's gonna put here, where you might, have a mid-block crossing that goes over to that island. And, you'd have to do, oh, I forget the terminology for it, but like the flashing light thing, right? Like
Yeah.
traditionally you don't like mid-block crossings because people don't expect there to be something there, right? So you can't just make a crossing. You gotta put other stuff there to notify people that, hey, there's stuff going on. Yep.
Which I usually hate, but in a place like this, I think it's really
I think it's a safety.
warranted. I do too. I just think if there's something more there, I can get behind it, but as it stands, I can't.
But, okay, so let me ask the question. Is that for hyper energy to put in, or is that something?
I don't know, but I would not support this. I would support tabling it. I would support something until we have a more comprehensive discuss a plan about how we're gonna mitigate the concern. I'm not saying it's their responsibility. It may very well be ours, but I'm not gonna approve this plan tonight until we have something else to mitigate the issue. That's my voice.
It's just, so the issue is crossing Hughes, but then also concern about proximity to Cherry as well.
The issue is the congestion and right, so for me, it would probably have to be more than just those flashers there. It would probably have to be flashers on, I don't know, maybe on Cherry, maybe on High.
Or would like a landscaping buffer that provides a physical
It
separation.
would just have
Yeah,
to be.
okay.
Yeah,
Just-
And Jackie means
Yeah.
like electronic flashers.
I mean, like,
I
something
knew what she
up there
meant.
with,
Okay.
the plain things.
Yes.
I'm sure traffic flow has been contemplated some, Luke. So what have you talked about related to traffic flow?
Really was trying to minimize, how they accessed out onto Hughes Drive and, having access control there. That's kind of why we ended up with this, situation that kept kind of one big driveway off into Hughes as opposed to kind of two separate ones and having them separated, differently. And then, really inside the site, thinking about how people might walk through that site and how many times they have to interact with traffic and trying to minimize the pedestrian and automobile conflict points. And it's hard to do when the business is a primarily auto-centric business that we know people are going to walk to. So
Yeah, there it'll be a little bit different.
Yeah.
Right? 'Cause-
and so, credit to the project folks, they heard us and, this is a significantly different project from what was originally proposed that I think gets us the best that we can, given the duality of those two, because they tend to not work great together. So, yeah, as far as, traffic volume on High Road, it didn't generate, it's not a use that generates the traffic that requires a study. So we know High Road is a main traveled road and it's appropriate for this to access it. So yeah, from that regard, there's not been a detailed look in it, but it's not something that we didn't expect.
And I wouldn't have expected that we would, right? From my perspective, we are creating this monster and we need to take care. And that's it, right? we need to take care.
One just real quick point of context, just letting you know, there is fencing around the complex. And this being that if somebody was walking outside of that, there'd be a place further north. However, this sidewalk right here, I mean, just if we're talking in the future about where people are gonna come to cross, just keeping in mind, that's kind of a main location of that traffic. Just FYI.
Okay, and to be clear, George and I are talking about two different places.
Yeah.
Right? So I appreciate George's concern. That's not exactly where I'm talking about. So hear George, hear me too. We are not talking about the same place. I am talking about everything that's happening at High and Cherry and going over to Highway 28 and the convenience store that's across the street that is already causing a ton of problems. That's the area that I'm talking about. I'm talking about the area where people already are complaining because people are not stopping at that stop sign. I am talking about adding another business right close to that spot where there is already a ton of issues that we are now widening the road in an effort to alleviate some of those issues, but will increase traffic. And now we're gonna put presumably high volume or high volume vehicle business with more vehicles and more people. That's what I'm talking about. That's my concern. I appreciate this one entry, one exit thing. Keeping all those cars on Hughes. I think that's a great model for that business. But I'm concerned about the people and the vehicles and the pedestrians and the bike trail on that corner where it's already a problem.
So they're shooting through the high road stop sign to get on the Cherry?
Yes.
Okay.
Or are they shooting through the Hughes stop sign to get on the High?
Both, I would think.
All of it?
Yes.
All of it.
All of it.
Okay.
Well, I would.
And just for full disclosure, the lot that Luke has highlighted, well, no, that
I'll highlight
had highlighted, that's the northern lot. Sorry.
this one.
Yes. So that lot there is going to be another probable high traffic business going into there.
Right, oh, great, except that, right,
I don't-
great, I'm happy
I
about
know.
this, as long as we take care.
Yeah.
And that's my whole point. At this point, right, again, my voice, at this point, I am not supporting this until we have a plan about how we are gonna mitigate the mess that we're creating.
How about?
But
if
we should expect that mess because that's why they're there, because of the park across the street.
I don't disagree with you, but what are we, how
It's
are we
be-
gonna mitigate it?
It's not gonna be a furniture store. I agree with that. It's gonna be high traffic serving those people. And plus you got the highway there too. But I don't wanna hold back their plans because of something we haven't thought of. That we need to, I shouldn't say haven't thought of, that's developed that we need to take care of. I think we should be able to fix it before they get their building built. Be my take on it.
Do we have any public comment? Yep. Would you state your name and your address?
Hi, Nikki Neal with CDA. We're the civil engineers on the project, 4121 Northwest Urbandale Drive. So I hear your concern. We are very open to adding anything that you need for that landscape plan. So I know right now the main focus was truly internal to that property and just really that customer experience, knowing that we are going to be heavily pulling people in and walking up that sidewalk and having that patio space. But for us, that is something we can easily consider and look at. The landscaping to buffer. So, yep.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other public comment? Yeah. Name and address?
Jeff Bergen, 6969 Highway 28 Norwalk. I found this kind of interesting. I just thought I'd throw it out there. For the customer who is in the auto and decides that I don't want to wait. how do they get out of the queue? And where do they park? On the ingress egress plan, it's kind of interesting that there would be no way to get out of the queue. I would hate to see those single lane traffics become dual lane because of frustration. That's all I got to say.
Anybody else? If you want back up.
Yep, so what would be the east drive-through lane does have a bypass lane with parking off of that, and we did separate that drive-through lane as well. So say an employee for any reason then comes and they can park and leave and loop out without interfering with that east drive-through lane. So we do have at least one of the bypass lane.
Thank you. Anybody else? Hearing none, can I get a motion to approve or to table?
So
What do you got?
So I would make a motion to approve with a landscape buffer. As they offered.
Is that the entire west side? Is there an area that you want that focused on?
Right, because I can't help that I mean, I appreciate the challenge.
That's
but-
what I'm
Yeah.
drawing pictures that.
So
Sorry.
I think, where it would interface with the bike trail and potential pedestrian. Provide that buffer so that it would provide some kind of block for pedestrian interaction. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I just want to clarify for you.
Maybe
Sorry.
take a, you can have that seat. for a
I'm
little while.
trying to get my steps in. So are you saying kind of more on that curve, I guess, so if we imagine we've been in coordination with Mid-American, so we'll have 10 feet at least of an easement on that west property line for underground electric. And then it'll just box out, I think it's about 20 feet on that kind of corner. So 10 by 20 also, so we can kind of loop, I guess, that curve, if that's what you're thinking. I think,
Like right there.
yes,
Yes, I think that would,
Yeah.
that would make me feel much better.
yes.
Yes,
I just wanted to make sure I understood.
yes, yes. So that would be the motion that I would make.
So motion to approve the resolution with an additional buffer. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, so I got that motion by Livingston, a second by Meineke. Any further discussion?
I think that you'll see a follow-on study or look at the pedestrian traffic on that.
Let's,
And Mayor, I think George was planning to bring up a little deeper dive, look at pedestrian access just in that area to the west. At that point in time, we could. I mean, if that comes up and you ask us as a future agenda item, we could put that on there to talk about other areas around there, just kind of the whole pedestrian input.
Okay. Thank you.
any other additional or further discussion? Kayla, would you please call roll?
Councilmember Brown,
Yes.
Cool,
Yes.
Livingston,
Yes.
Meineke.
Yes.
All right, that motion carries. Item 8F is a resolution approving the site plan of Iowa Hearing Center. So this site is located to the south of the car wash. We talked about the entrance in prior meetings. I think we saw an entrance off High Road and that was questionable. Looks like the entrance for the parking lot is coming off of Highway 28. Luke, I'll let you take it over.
Yep, so yeah, really, that's one of the big things with this site was, again, tight site redevelopment area. Trying to make something work that works for the site and works for the context of what we're doing. One of the challenges with that was our Highway 28 access agreement that we have with the DOT and what way they would allow, and specifically this block from High Road down to not Richard George, Shady Lane. we had made some statements of like, one of our goals was to limit accesses there. And we had the two drives into the Sunset Crest development. The idea was that hopefully we could come off either one of those drives with frontage roads, go to the north, go to the south. Unfortunately, the redevelopment didn't happen like we thought, where people might come in and assemble lots. So we've had these more smaller redevelopment projects happen. So we were able to work with the property owner. They were able to work with their neighboring property owner and acquire an easement to access off of that existing drive that services the Sunset Lounge building. So that helps us achieve that goal of reducing one access onto Highway 28, kind of coalescing things there. And yeah, so that was the main thing that we were working through, trying to find a solution for. Other than that, we did infill PUD language to help site this building, so it meets the intent and language of that as well. Happy to go over anything else if you've got questions.
So that made it through all the requirements that the state has,
Yes.
not only as far as access, but also as far as what's being built along that road.
Context of the area. Questions and discussion from council.
And the road that currently goes into Sunset is right, or the Sunset Lounge, right there.
One that goes into Sunset Lounge is.
Yeah, he's using the north entrance of Sunset.
Yeah, the north.
Yep. Right there.
That one,
Right.
yeah.
And then that driveway that you just put in there is going away.
Okay.
Which, sorry,
Right.
which driveways?
The northernmost one.
The residential one.
That
For the
house
house.
is
Yeah, and one by the old house.
It's being removed.
So then back behind Sunset Drive, that will go through? I'm confused.
The new
Oh, no,
drive-
just they'll go through the front.
Yeah, they can only come in the front. Yep.
Gotcha, okay.
Yep.
So the new one, from what I saw, new one comes in like that.
Okay, great. Thank you for that, everybody.
Is that rough?
Pretty good. But yeah, thank you for that.
I'd say that's engineering level right there.
I think he's gonna disagree.
No, you did great, Luke. Jason Len with Iron Associates. So there's a median between the Sunset Lounge and the Norwalk Salon and Suites. There's
Yes.
an island. So this will be shared with Norwalk Salon and Suites. And then there's the island in between. So Sunset Lounge has its own access off Highway 28, and then they also have a back access to High. So this property this property Norwalk Salon and Suites will share one access, but we are also eliminating access that are things there.
Okay, that's great. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Yes.
That's my fault. I know that as the Sunset Lounge building. I forget. that they're
That's all right.
Same building.
Yeah.
Same
I
building.
get it.
Any other discussion, questions or public comment?
Glad you could make that work.
Motion. Okay, so I got a motion by Mike.
You do have some.
Huh? Yeah.
Eugene Tilsey, 1506 Holly. Is that driveway then gonna be across from the old entrance to Fairway?
No.
No, it goes out onto Highway 28.
Or it's gonna go on the highway? Because right now, anytime in the afternoon and evening, there's 8 to 10 cars parked along High Road. And it gets really congested up in there.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
exactly my.
That was her,
Yeah.
that was Councilmember Livingston's issue.
You're welcome.
Can you state your name and address for?
I did.
Oh, did you? Okay, I'm sorry. I missed that. Okay. Cause I know who you are, so. All right. Other discussion. Got a motion by Meineke. Anybody want to second it? Okay, so Livingston seconded. Any further discussion? Caitlin, would you call roll?
Councilmember Cool,
It'd be nice to have that business here. Yeah.
I'm sorry,
was yes.
Councilmember Cool.
That was a yes.
Oh, was that a yes? Okay. Councilmember Livingston. Meineke,
Yes.
Brown.
All right, motion carries. Item 8G. Resolution approving engineering services for the West High Road subdrain retrofit project. So part of the street has some water issues because subdrains were not added to the pavement, which was probably standard operating procedure at the time. We now need to retrofit the streets to have subdrains so it properly drains, which will enhance the integrity of the pavement. Wayne, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll just add that this is a common scenario throughout the community. We have a number of areas where there's a lot of groundwater, a lot of irrigation, and there's not great drainage for that water. If you drive out in this area, you'll see staining of the roadway where water comes up to the joints, comes into the driveways, goes down the gutter of the road. We've not done a project like this where we've retrofitted subdrains in to capture that groundwater, so that's why we're starting with a smaller project. This is about 250 feet. We're gonna do it on the south side of High Road between Weathersfield and Bentley, and then a little section the way west north corner there along Bentley Court. I will note, I'm excited to do this project to capture that water and see how it operates. We'll note this will be another project where it's highly disruptive to the residents. The work is at the back of curb, it's taking out driveway approaches, and it's taking out irrigation. So we'll likely get complaints about the project, but it's important for the longevity of the road that we get deep in, see if it's improvement.
So would you say this is a good example of why we should add subdrains during initial street construction?
I would. My complaint often is when we get geotech reports for development, it shows it's fine, they don't need it, but what gets developed afterwards is not a similar condition. Everybody irrigates and the water saturates the area. That's not what is out there before construction. And when they do a soil boring or soil analysis shows they don't need it, there's not water out there. Well, that changes with development.
So if Ryan was here, I would say, so it's irrigation again is the issue of the rates.
Yeah, there's groundwater out there too. I couldn't put a number on how much is groundwater, how much is from irrigation. There's some groundwater coming off from the south, from that Sunset Estates that's not developed yet. There's groundwater coming in there as well.
Okay. Right. Discussion, go ahead.
I just want to add, Wayne has taken me out to this site probably a half dozen times. And usually it happens a few days after we've had a rain event, because that's when the signs are really telling to see where that water is coming out of hillsides. He's also done a good job of, as he explains the cost of this project, the disruption that it's going to have. And this is hard to say, but we may find that this does not have a significant impact on the area. But what we're going to learn in this situation, I think, is going to do a lot for us in other scenarios, or even for some of our subdivision standards. I think part of this is we're trying to get the most longevity out of these streets that we can. So this is an attempt of doing something, but we want to temper expectations that this is going to solve all the problems. I feel bad for adjacent residents that they're going to be disrupted and it may not have excellent impact. Maybe it will.
Okay, discussion, questions?
I just want some clarification.
So the work that's being done is to retrofit this section of road with subdrain.
The south half of the road.
It is not a reconstruction of the road.
Correct.
So
The curb and gutter section, so 3 feet of the road will have to come out. Curb and gutter, and then there'll be some there's broken panels. We're gonna capture these broken panels as we're going through there. So it's more of a patching project, not a reconstruction.
okay. So the curb and gutter, which is usually the responsibility of the homeowner, in this case, would not be assessed to the homeowner. I'm not trying to start anything.
Right.
I'm just seeking clarification and the difference.
We weren't anticipating doing assessments. That's normally when we do a full reconstruction of the roadway. At this point, it's not a full reconstruction. We're doing the curb and gutter. It should I'm trying to think how I need to convey this. There's still going to be a full reconstruction at some point. I think we're we're not building a full new pavement where they're gonna get 50 years of new life out of this. There's still the main driving lanes of the road that will have to get rebuilt at some point, and when that gets rebuilt, that's still gonna require a new curb and gutter, which would be an accessible item.
So this is more of the patch and repair that you do for streets all over the place that isn't assessment worthy,
Correct? Yep.
right?
I would agree.
Assessment project might come down the road. This is a different type of project.
Correct.
Okay, however, the cost of the irrigation system that a homeowner has put in, that's the homeowner's expense, right?
We'll be, we've been consistent on recent projects with that.
Okay. That, and again, I was just an explanation.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Thought I had one more question, but I can't remember it, so never mind. Thank you.
I will say they added sub drains in front of my house. Up carry up north, up the hill a little ways and on down. That helped tremendously for our street.
We've had good success with it, doing it internally as staff projects.
Yeah.
I guess I have what might be an engineering question in this regard. So when we're contemplating these streets and they do the study of the ground, right? Is there any way for them to anticipate the impact of irrigation in those neighborhoods or any of the other, things that come up in life in those neighborhoods? We've discussed strengthening our street standards, our code in the past, right? And we've been assured that they would make those modifications where it was necessary. Right, well, it's cheaper if they don't, I guess. But I wondered, is there any way that an engineer can anticipate that set of circumstances potentially in the effect it might have? Is that an expectation we can put on them?
I think it's a reasonable question. Whether it's an expectation or not, I don't know. We typically don't see that in our geotechnical reports that we receive, but it's certainly an impact. Just the nature of construction, subgrade work on pavements and the nature of the grading changes in subdivisions too, has an impact on subsurface drainage and surface drainage as well. So it's hard, in a lot of ways, a lot of the geotechnical reports we've got historically are more general in nature and aren't very specific to each specific area. And that's one of the things that we're trying to change in the subdivision regulations. So I think it's a good question, something that I think needs to be addressed. But more so than that, it's some of the physical changes that occur. Even, like I said, even the subgrade preparation and building a road essentially creates a dam and blocks that subsurface drainage. So the impact of the road development itself in an undeveloped area, can cause that groundwater to reach the surface. Irrigation just adds to it. So all these things and what we're seeing in failures in our subdivision are leading us to, yes, it's something that we think is necessary. It should be part of our subdivision regulations and is going to tremendously improve and lengthen the life of our pavements and the life cycle costs of those pavements.
Okay, so you're in the process of working your way through that now.
Tony and I had started working on that.
Thank you.
Any other discussion, comments from the council or public comment?
Can I ask just a general question? What's a subdrain look like? What is the color? Is it rock or something like that?
Yeah, so essentially it's a small drainage tile. It's about, typically 6 inches in diameter. We use a porous backfill and sometimes an engineering fabric to keep that porous backfill clean and everything. So essentially what it does, and it's typically just 24 to 30 inches below the surface. And it's designed to basically capture that, not just a surface moisture from things like irrigation that's saturating those upper organic layers of material, but also that subsurface drainage, So the most important thing for those subdrains, longitudinal subdrains along pavement, is to protect the pavement from moisture damage, the freeze thaw action and the damage that moisture can do when it gets underneath the pavement. So typically, yeah, we want that on those sides where the ground is higher than the road, so we can capture that subsurface moisture and surface moisture before it gets underneath the pavement. So it's small diameter trench or small width trench, only 24 to 30 inches deep, filled with a porous backfill so it can capture that water and bring it to an existing storm system.
So in this case, when we take out the curb, is that where the pipe is, or you drill underneath the pavement away?
Yeah, so the location of it is what could necessitate taking out the curb and gutter. In some cases, it may not be necessary depending on utility locations. We may be able to save the curb and gutter in some locations, but just based on its proximity, that could become necessary. And I think that's why Wayne mentioned this project. So that'll be part of the design process, I think. But driveways, again, are going to be impacted because it needs to go through those driveway areas.
So we don't have an ordinance in place right now. So like on that one they just poured out at the Ron's.
Saddle Ridge.
Saddle Ridge. Did that have any subdrain?
It does have subdrains.
Okay.
And it's been a while since we looked at that. I'd have to look at that again, but it's possible not all of that did, but we have currently in our subdivision regulations, we have certain criteria that require subdrains. So portions of that does have subdrains.
Thank you.
Will we allow, or is there any need for residents to hook up sump pump downspouts to it?
Some pump connections should be in place already.
Okay. Great. Any other questions? Public comment? Can I get a motion?
Motion.
Okay, so motion by Livingston, seconded by Meineke to approve the resolution as presented. Any further discussion? Kalen, would you call the roll?
Councilmember Livingston.
Yes.
Minneke.
Yes.
Brown.
Yes.
Poole.
Yes.
All right, that motion carries. And I have to apologize, but I need a break. So. Restroom.
Oh.
So we're gonna take a 10-minute recess. Okay. All right. At 7:12. Sorry.
7:21, you mean?
So. Be back 7:20.
Run, George, run.
Ready, Kalen?
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so we are out of recess back into session at 7:22 PM. Item 8H is a resolution approving the official name of the parkland dedicated to the city within Norwalk Central Development. So it's now time to name the park area that's located within Norwalk Central, and the recommended name is, drum roll please, Norwalk Central Park.
I like it. I like it.
Adam, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, we just took it to the Park and Recreation Advisory Commission and they voted to, that they like the name the best. That's about all I can add, Mayor.
All right. Questions, discussion, comments
You
from
would have
council?
brought number 3 to us. That would have been rough. So, good choice.
Perfect.
Now you gotta show everybody what number 3 was.
That's all right. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, no.
With periods too.
Yeah.
All right, everybody good? Get a motion to approve?
Second.
Okay, motion by Livingston, seconded by Brown. Any further discussion or public comment? Kalen, would you call roll?
Councilmember Minneke,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Cool,
Yes.
Livingston.
All right, motion carries. Item 8I. Resolution approving the official name of the parkland dedicated to the city within Brody's Landing development. So there's a 3-acre park in Brody's Landing that needs to be named. Another drum roll. Thank you. Somebody did it. Recommended name is to name it Falcon Park.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
Adam.
Yeah, not a whole lot to add there, Mayor.
Okay, good deal.
You like Atlanta Falcons
No,
helmets?
just a falcon.
It looks like a falcon, yeah.
Yeah.
That's on their helmet. That's what I thought.
No.
Oh,
Yeah.
Because they're, what's their
Wait,
team
wait
name
a
again?
minute for some of it.
New Orleans Saints Park. is in there.
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Livingston, seconded by Brown. Any further discussion or public comment? Phelan, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Brown,
Yes.
Cool,
Yes.
Livingston.
Yes.
Minneke.
yes.
All right, motion carries. Item 8J is a resolution approving a temporary parking waiver for the Greg Young Sports Complex. So people coming to events at the Greg Young Sports Complex continue to have troubles finding parking spaces. Before I turn this over to Luke, I'd like to say that no matter what we do, there are going to be issues with parking. We're just trying to minimize those issues. I also want to add that action on this item does not mean that all locations approved will immediately turn into overflow parking. The landowners of each area would first need to grant usage for parking, and then additional prep work would be necessary for that. Approval of this resolution does not require each landowner to create parking areas. It only grants approval if the landowner chooses to proceed. Luke, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, so every spring, since we started the field and sports complex project, we've done kind of a city staff and stakeholder meeting of the various users and owners of that property to just kind of talk about how things are going, you know, the active development, what things we should pay attention to. You know, in the past that did bring up temporary parking that we kind of more formalized in that area that's identified as previous temporary parking lot. Primarily because at that point in time, we only had the southern parking lot online. The spring after that, we had half of the northern parking lot. Well, all of the northern parking lot was done and the eastern parking lot, but there were some access concerns. There was still construction going on with the Sportsplex building. So, you know, we did some things to address that. And this year during that conversation, the discussion came up to, should we go ahead and pre-identify a temporary parking location if it's needed? Mayor, I think you mentioned that, you know, parking concerns may exist or not. Part of that meeting, we didn't hear a specific statement from, at least on the private side, that there was a parking concern right now. It was more of a, hey, as things go on, as they use the fields and have events, as we now have our facility online and we have events that maybe there's overlap at times, there just might be a time where if somebody would say, hey, it'd be good to have a temporary parking spot already identified, considering that it's a P and Z hearing and then council consideration to get that done. So you're minimum 4 weeks to get anything done. So trying to be a little preemptive here. We did in those kind of initial staff discussions, identify some locations between us as staff and between the private property owners that may be acceptable. So one of those was the previous temporary parking lot that is owned by the Heartland Sports Complex people that own Fairway Fields. The other area was the Sportsplex Outlot, and that is owned by the Sportsplex folks, right adjacent to everything. And then we had some other undeveloped land. It's kind of two different potential spots, but we did it as one big blob there. And that's the city library ground on the northern side, and Diligent has an undeveloped lot. And so those are all kind of the potential locations. We did go to P and Z to get their recommendation. They wanted to focus on looking at the Sportsplex outlot in the undeveloped city or Diligent lot. They were concerned about some of the resident concerns that existed when that previous temporary parking lot was used. We did not use that at all last summer. We were very deliberate in telling Heartland not to let anyone park there, and they did a good job of keeping folks out of there. So P&Z's recommendation would be to focus on one of those lots on near the north primary parking lot. We did have in the staff report a park and rec perspective and a library board perspective, given that there's other departments that have opinions on things. And those were just in summary, park and rec felt that moving something on that, providing more of that extra overflow parking on the south side and that previous temp lot would free up potential more space up there, right? The idea that maybe those baseball users would funnel down there if the concern was during a situation where we had events at both the fields and the field house, that maybe that would give more parking up on the field or up on the northern parking lot. And then the library board met last week, I believe, or maybe earlier this week, and was not in favor of using the city library lot. That's also kind of the farthest spot, so maybe practically isn't the best. Another just final point on that city library lot and the Diligent lot, there are active farming leases on those. We were told that we can modify those relatively easily if we need to. But that's a hurdle to using any of those spaces as well. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Luke?
Is Sportsplex outlot, is Sportsplex likely in favor? Have we talked to them? Are they probably agreeable to letting that be parking?
At our meeting, that was one of the options that was said, yeah, we could consider that. I do know, and I don't know if Holly has heard that if there's any interest in that, it's being actively marketed. So there's a potential that they decide to develop it and then we lose that.
Okay, but I guess for clarification, at our meeting, was Sportsplex at our meeting?
Yes, yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, the meeting of Sportsplex, Heartland, and staff.
Okay.
Yes.
That's what I was trying to clarify.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
So this could very well be rolled up into the consideration we had earlier about taking a look at pedestrian traffic and the activity on that street. Because as we're looking at this, we're discussing some lots that may well go out of existence that might be developed.
Sure.
Right? So that could change the whole situation down here and what we're looking at.
Yep.
Right? So we need to have options beyond just the immediate stuff. And I guess I'd like to see at some point this come back to us in discussion. We could talk about that under agenda item. But it's kind of rolled up into a general study and look at that area. Because it's not only the parking, but it's, going to be the pedestrian traffic and increased vehicle traffic, which is a good thing. I mean, we wanted that, right? But now we just to make sure we're being as smart as we can be about how we deal with it.
Yep, and I guess to the pedestrian point, there is a decent amount of on-street parking around the area. With the East 18th, but and even along Chatham, but we've not had the development occur that is gonna bring those other pedestrian facilities. So while that might be able to park on there, and I'm sure people do, it does put people walking out in the street, which isn't ideal.
Thank you.
Also remember that I think Luke's gonna draw it on here. All of this area that Luke is circling is going to be parking lot at some point in time.
Right. Yeah, as that develops.
Yes.
And we're just trying to figure out a place that if it's necessary for this summer, people could use.
Yep.
Yeah.
And if each of those property owners decide they want to use their land for the parking,
Yes.
just kind of fast tracks if they decide to do that.
It's a good idea.
I mean, could you get down on Ingersoll? I mean, they have properties down there you don't dare park on. If you don't go into that business, they're gonna haul you away.
Oh, yeah.
This is gonna end up the same way, isn't it? Eventually, you're either in my business or we're gonna have you towed away. So it's not gonna be free for all parking, whatever you wanna do. Well, unless you're trying to serve those people, then of course you're gonna be busy. But if you're not, for whatever reason, you might want to have your customer come in and that's might be not associated with the fields necessarily. And you might be a little bit protective of your parking. I just don't think it's all gonna be available.
So I guess, right, so I guess I'm a little troubled by how resolution's written, right, which of course we can alter. For today's purposes, at least as far as I understand with the information that we have right now, Sportsplex outlet would be available and Diligence lot would be available. Did I understand that correctly? Diligence said yes. Okay. So, and it would be available until, except that Diligence lot is farmed. And planting season's already happened, right? So has it been planted? So it's probably not really available. Okay, so that leaves then Sportsplex lot, outlot is available. Right, because it doesn't make sense to me that we're gonna park cars after farmers have already planted. Kind of sense in that,
This year, no.
right? Okay, so, and that's right, we're talking about this year, aren't we? Or is this like,
This is just future planning that as they become more popular, as more activities happen, just being prepared.
I think how this generated was, if you remember in the past years, okay,
I appreciate that. I know how it generated. I don't need a
Okay.
history lesson. I appreciate that.
okay.
So it seems to me that this is a discussion that we need to have on a year-to-year basis. I don't feel like we pass a resolution this year that stands forever, because this is gonna be an issue we need to revisit every year. This is changing. This development is changing every year. And where our needs are is changing every year. And maybe next year, the Diligent lot isn't farmed, but this year it's farmed. I'm not comfortable passing a resolution that says, yep, we can park at the Diligent lot when it's already planted. I'm not comfortable passing a resolution that says, yep, we can park there. Maybe next year we pass the resolution and it's not planted, then that's a different story for me. So for me today, I would pass a resolution. I would vote yes, saying we can park at the Sportsplex outlet. That's it. Because apparently nobody thinks we should park at the previous temporary parking lot, which I'm not completely convinced of yet, because we made accommodations originally that seem to mitigate some of the issues. I'm not saying we have to do it, but maybe it's an alternative if we have to go to that alternative. I just, I'm not ready to do a resolution forever. I am more than happy to say this year we can do a waiver that lets them park at the Sportsplex outlot if needed. I'm not ready to do a resolution that says whatever forever. That's my position.
So Luke, what was it that you wanted to walk away from here with? Were you wanting us to authorize you folks to negotiate with the other property owners just to have alternate parking in case we need it for a special
Yeah,
event?
essentially a location identified that if we say this weekend, there's gonna be a lot of events happening and we need to have temporary, that's where we're gonna put up some temporary signs and direct people to park into.
Okay, and you feel that you need us to authorize you to conduct those
Yep.
discussions?
Yep.
We've already done the discussion.
We have to, code doesn't allow people to park on grass.
I understand
Yeah.
that, but we're not authorizing you to have discussions. You've already had the discussions, right? The library board has already told you no. Right? Diligent has said yes, except that it's already been planted. Sportsplex has said yes. And P and Z has said, no, we don't want you to park at the temporary lot. Right?
I think to me that,
We've already
oh,
had the discussions. So what you're looking for is us to say, yes, you can let them park in these places, right?
Yes.
to me, it comes down to, you can take the crop out, who pays for it?
Right.
That's the only question. And, it'd be like $1,300 an acre, probably gross revenue off an acre of farm ground. This year I would take it. Oh yeah, park on my ground. For what it's worth. I'll take my 1,300. And, so now who pays for it? And I don't know what the answer is.
We can't pay for this
Oh, no.
guy to have his trees replanted. We're gonna pay $1,300.
No, I didn't know. I said, who pays for it? It's who,
We would not pay for that.
yeah, it would be diligence cost.
Right.
Yeah. That's all. That's what would be my take on it. It's,
I agree.
we wouldn't pay, they would have to pay for that.
I think they probably assumed that too. I don't know. P and Z gave us a recommendation at 2 and 3. Do we need more spaces, do you think?
Do I think, I don't have that answer.
Yeah.
What, I'll be real clear here, what we are doing as a government is just simply paving the way for a private entity that if they want to accommodate additional parking and pay for it, whatever they need to do, this is just us making the regulatory decision to make it easier for them to do it.
I'm happy to grant that way.
Right. So do I think, I don't know. All I know is this makes us more prepared.
So
I
I'd
guess-
say, I would say the resolution needs to be the Sportsplex outlot, the undeveloped village lot. Yeah.
I guess I would move that.
Okay, I got a motion.
Second.
And a second. Okay, so motion by Cole, seconded by Meineke. Do we have any public comment?
I don't want to stir the pot, but I can do it.
Yeah, come on up.
So I'm Elizabeth Thompson,
Posture, right there.
1421 East 13th Street. And I have stuff written down, but if you guys aren't going to put it with that previous lot, I won't go through my spiel. So I don't know what.
Previous lots out.
Previous
Okay.
lots out, so.
Okay.
Yep.
And I guess my next question, is this a forever resolution or is this year by year?
I would agree with Jackie, it's year by year, because it's gonna change.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna
That's not
change.
the resolution. Right now, the resolution is forever. So
Oh, I would have,
I don't.
can I amend the resolution, or who did
Yeah.
who made the motion?
Well, it should, I mean.
So I don't mind having it permanent at the Sportsplex outlet in the undeveloped village lot. That's, they're
Yeah.
out there. And it doesn't,
Until it's not, right, I mean, this is my problem, until it's not available, right? And it's actively marketed, so I don't know why this would be.
We're not,
an issue with this whole resolution forever.
Well,
This would be a bad time for me to bring up my parking lot idea or parking ramp idea.
No, it's.
I don't get. How would I go?
You know what it's called, if it's just a 1 year waiver, I don't know, that doesn't seem to me to be a resolution, or if it's just a direction, or if it's a, I don't know, that's to me what we should be doing.
In the past, when we did a temporary parking waiver, we had in the resolution a date and time that it expired. And then if we need it beyond that, and in that instance, we came back and issued a second one to extend it later into the year. So it's possible to add a date and time to the temporary parking.
I think authorizing what you're talking about authorizing now, clearly all it is a waiver by the council to say, okay, you can park there without pavement being there. Because that's what you're waiving. I mean, the previous temporary parking lot down there, if they wanted to cement that tomorrow, they could legally park there. I mean, all you're waiving is that
right. So
that
it could be used
they don't have
for-
to have cement there. Zoning wise, the city's already decided parking can be down south. It's already decided that it could be up there at Sparkplex outlet. I mean, zoning wise, it's allowed. So what we're doing right now, what the council's doing is saying you don't have to have cement there to park. Okay? Clearly, if the Sportsplex outlot sold to somebody else, Sportsplex would no longer say, yeah, you can use that as a temporary parking because it's sold to somebody else. Same with the Diligent lot. Really, the only thing only place that doesn't come into play with would be the city ground for the library. If the city decided, okay, we're gonna, along with the library, but they said no. There's control there. The only other place where there's control is on the south one. That is actually owned by the same company that owns the ball fields. So, and I would guess that the company that owns the ball fields is gonna be the ones who pays for the temporary parking because they're causing the demand of it. So, I don't know whether that helps or not.
so if we do the Sportsplex outlet and the undeveloped Diligent lot, and it's in perpetuity, we don't have to spend 30 minutes talking about it next year. We can just, it just can happen. And we don't have to discuss this again until those are developed and we need to talk about it again.
This will come up.
Well, I don't know if they've said you can park here and we're willing to say, yeah, we can use that grass. Rather than cement it. I mean, we can force it to come up again, or.
When the motion gets made, however it gets made.
Right.
I'd like to grant a waiver to those two places to.
We get two people wait to speak. I just
Yeah.
didn't know. I want to make sure that on this occasion, that south lot is not on the board.
True. That is correct.
But and if this is going to continue for the other two, the Diligent and then the sports slot, or whatever it's called, is that forever? Unless it's being used in some way or sold? And in that case, what about the one down south? Is that going to have to come up every single year?
Ma'am, I think every one of those lots would be available for this possibility until they're developed.
Yeah.
And so as it's developed out, then that'll drop off, right? If somebody else is using property.
Yes.
And so that's kind of the life cycle that this would probably follow.
At some point in time, we are going to talk about this again. But not with these two lots.
Kelly Cook, 1407 East 17th Street. I don't want to throw more fuel on the fire, but with previous discussions this evening about through traffic, pedestrian traffic, additional parking. What if, I don't even know if it's feasible, I'm not an attorney, but if you wanted to cut down on through traffic and pedestrian traffic, closing High Road from 17th to High, so that those of us, I know my husband and I cut through there to go to Fairway. you could cut through, eliminate the cut through. And instead of high road, add additional parking that then separates the neighborhoods from the parking of the ball fields and makes a physical barrier for folks that they're not bleeding onto that narrow high street and causing traffic jams.
Well, I think we're gonna bring up a future agenda item to kind of like look at all of that, right? Yeah.
Just a random idea before I forget.
Well, we're open to any random good ideas.
All right.
Perfect. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you.
If anybody else has any random good ideas,
We'd like to hear them. Or any other public input that might not be random good ideas.
right? Very specific.
All right. Hearing none, I have a motion to approve
Parking
the the parking waiver for Sportsplex outlet and the undeveloped diligent lot from Cool. Second by Meineke. Do we have any further discussion from council? Caitlin, would you please call roll?
Councilmember Cool,
Yeah.
Livingston,
No.
Meineke,
Yes.
Brown.
Yeah.
All right, that motion carries. Item 8K is a second reading of an ordinance providing for the elimination of dog park passes and providing for penalties for violating dog park rules. So House File 718 has caused us to look at what amenities our residents have asked for, but that we can no longer provide. One of those was animal control and the licensing of dogs. As we continue down the House File 718 journey, we are finding that we can no longer effectively keep track of the dog park passes and the documentation needed for those licenses, for those passes. This ordinance change removes the need for dog park passes and adds some penalties to charge if someone violates the dog park rules. There are going to be signs posted at the dog park indicating people are using the park at their own risk. Adam or Jim, you got anything additional?
I've got nothing new.
Nope, I have nothing new.
All right. Thank you. That's a motion to approve second reading from Brown, seconded by Meineke. Any public comments? Caitlin would call roll.
Councilmember Livingston,
Yeah.
Meineke,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Cool.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. Item 8L. It's final reading of an ordinance amending utility, garbage, and recycling rate increases. So as expenses increase due to inflation from us joining Central Iowa Waterworks, cost of improvements in the system, and a new water tower, we need to set new utility rates. This is also time we will consider adjusting garbage and recycling rates. Luke or Lindsay, anything to add?
No.
Okay, any question, discussion from council or public comment? Hearing none, can I get a motion to approve final reading?
Motion.
Okay, so motion by Cool, seconded by Livingston. Caitlin, would you please call roll?
Councilmember Meineke,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Cool,
Yes.
Livingston.
Okay, that motion carries. Item 8M, and thank you for sticking around for it. It's final reading of an ordinance amending chapter 75 and 177 of the Norwalk Code related to off-road utility vehicles. We've talked a lot about UTVs and their use on Norwalk streets. The report from a study group that looked into UTV usage is the reason we have finally arrived at getting a proposed ordinance to allow the usage of UTVs on the streets of Norwalk. Chief, anything to add?
No, sir.
All right, Jim, if this is approved tonight, when does it actually become effective?
Once you sign it and publication is final, I believe, speaking with our clerk earlier today, Lindsay indicated that we can get it to the paper tomorrow. And it'll be published next Thursday.
Published on Thursday.
So next Thursday is when it would take effect.
All right. Any discussion or questions from council? Can I get a motion to approve the final reading?
Motion.
Okay, motion by Cool, seconded by Brown. Caitlin, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Brown,
Yes.
Cool,
Yes.
Livingston,
No.
Yes.
Meineke,
Yes.
Change your mind in the final reading.
Wow. Well, okay, so, and let me say then that, you know, if I veto it today or tomorrow, it will not go into effect on Thursday. But I'm not going to do that either. So that motion carries. So Thursday. All right. Okay, item 8N. Get to them, my script. Norwalk Central Water Tower Design Discussion. So we're gonna build a water tower to add to our current water network. Wayne has some questions about the design, logo, and lighting of the tower. So Wayne, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mayor. Try to be as brief as possible. B&K is working on the design of the tower. It's exciting to the point now where we need to make some decisions related to aesthetics of it. I listed, it's really 3 items that we need to discuss, and I'm hoping to have some guidance and a decision from council. I'm an engineer, I'm not allowed to make aesthetic decisions, so thought we're here bringing it to you guys. First item is the tower lighting. We're required to have obstruction lighting on top of the tower. There's no other requirement for exterior lighting. A lot of communities are adding it. It makes it look nice at night. Of course, it's additional cost. It's a council consideration if it's worth, it's a preference item, but worth the additional cost for having additional lighting. So I'd hope for some discussion.
Yeah. What's there? I like the uplighting. I like Altoona has. What's everybody else think?
I like up. Yeah, I think that would look good.
So we can change colors and that kind of stuff with it.
Yeah, so the cost that we got estimated in this agenda item is for that uplighting, similar to the Adam Street Water Tower West Des Moines did on our, kind of at our west corporate limits there.
That's not color changing lighting though. The
It's
cost
not,
estimate
it's
here is
not
just
that,
lighting.
and I was gonna clarify. This estimate is about $60,000 to $70,000 for the materials. That's LED lighting, so we can change the colors. And then the additional cost, we're estimating, hopefully we can do a little better than that, is the labor for installation. So we're estimating probably in that $90,000 to $100,000 range to do something similar to that Adam Street Water Tower, but this would be LED lighting so that we can change the colors. Or maybe match the colors depending on the color of the tower that we select as well.
Yeah. More kind of like Altoona's.
Yes, Musco Lighting, yes.
Which is a partner of ours out there.
Exactly. And that's one of the reasons we reached out to them.
Okay. So uplighting.
Great.
And Tony, that was
And it's-
SRF eligible.
It is, it has been, we don't have any reason to believe it won't be SRF eligible. It has been on previous projects, so
What is, all right.
state revolving fund loan, so this project is in the state revolving fund loan program, so the cost of the firm will be reimbursed as part of that loan. We have a planning and design loan that'll be rolled into construction costs. And then once the project is completed, there'll be debt service for that loan. But so right now we're anticipating all the items associated with the construction of the project would be SRF eligible, with the exception of sizes, which we can talk about down the list.
And that's something if bids came in higher, we don't have, if it's a funding issue, we could pull lighting out pretty easily.
We can, and what I would recommend is that we bid that as an alternate so that we can see the cost. And that's an item that can easily be removed, and it's something that we can add in the future if it's not part of the initial project, but this is the most cost-effective way to do it. Put it initially part of the construction of the project.
Yeah, I think that'd be a good idea anyway, because, we've tried to make that area a focal point. And this would probably help that. Get it that way.
It would. I'm jaded by looking at my front door. When I walk out my front door and seeing that West Des Moines on Adam Streets, it was such a beautiful just view, and all of a sudden this ugly water tower is standing there. And you got the same issue, I'm sure.
I do, and yeah, so
it is
mixed
what it is.
emotions, in a residential area, but I think that where this is located, it would be a nice focal point for the city.
It was very cool though to watch them construct it.
Yeah.
Yes.
That was neat.
At least there at our location, you know what you're getting into. You have
Correct.
no excuses. We were
Yes,
in another town, in fact, so. Yeah.
we were, yeah, both impacted the same.
All right.
Next question.
Sorry, just to confirm the cost estimate for what we're talking about. You said it was 60 to 70,000?
60 to 70,000 for the materials delivered to the site. So when we bid this, if we bid as an alternate, we'll get a cost that will include installation. And that's what we're anticipating to be close to $100,000.
Okay, so
So the whole pack.
I was just making sure that 100,000.
Yeah, yeah, correct.
Okay.
Okay.
I did solicit feedback from Councilmember Baker. He said he wouldn't be opposed to some basic lighting. He said he generally didn't want extravagant lighting, but it sounds like there's consensus from the others on that. So I'm gonna go ahead and jump to the last item on here because I think it'll help us with the other two. The tower construction material. When we went through engineer selection, council members Baker and Livingston were on the committee. We discussed at that time, I remember wanting consistency with the other tower, which was an all steel construction, a steel pedestal and a steel bowl. That was probably 3 years ago. A lot of communities now, most construction is a concrete pedestal with a steel bowl like what Milwaukee has there. There's significant cost savings on that. But we did discuss before that both of those as an option. So I want to bring that forward for a decision tonight.
And so if I could, part of me, the consistency was generally appearance. I wasn't so consistent in terms exactly of material, but for instance, I didn't want a golf ball. For instance, I mean, we looked at a lot of different styles, you know, like the skinny, tall style, right?
Yep.
Consistency for me was something that looked substantially similar as opposed to markedly different. So I'm consistency for me wasn't exactly the same material, just substantially similar.
Tony, the site plan had our design. That picture's in here. If you were to scroll, the site plan had an accurate picture, you know?
Yeah,
Scroll to the
so
next
in
page.
terms of consistency of design and what the tower, the shape of the tower, what it looked like, yes, this will be consistent. The reason that, you know, and the composite thing, when we talk about composite tank that, you know, like the shown in the picture there, yeah, concrete pedestal with a steel bowl.
Right.
The reason there's two reasons that's got more cost effective than steel. One is the higher prices of steel today, and the other is the efficiency the contractors that build these have gotten with their gang form system of building the reinforced concrete pedestal design. So that's become a lot more efficient, so they can save time in terms of labor and construction time, and the steel costs are so high. So even West Des Moines, that traditionally all steel, the cost was significantly less. We bid them as alternates, significantly less for the Adams Street Water Tower. They went with a composite section. Also less maintenance costs over time as well with that design. So and my opinion is it looks better.
And I think when we talked about it 3 years ago, it was, you know, 5 years before that, it was the reverse.
It absolutely was. It absolutely was.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's where we're at today. The sizes we're looking at, we would, you know, we could bid them as all alternates, but we don't really see a need to do that because we think the cost is going to be in that range of from what we've seen in recent bids, as well as very recent information we've got from contractors. We're anticipating the cost of all steel to be $300,000 to $500,000 more than the composite section, based on the two sizes that we're looking at.
I kind of think
What
that
if it was
composite
a-
would be good.
What if it's a combination baseball, softball, soccer ball, pickleball?
Yeah. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, we can do that.
You need a break.
Have to move that a little bit.
We can paint that. We can stencil anything we
Say
want,
that's a no.
just about anything we
I
like.
can't believe it. Nobody's brought up naming rights. So.
No, well, we wouldn't recommend it. You know, one of the reasons
Golf ball
it's
on the tee.
less cost for maintenance is
Jackie said
if
no.
you don't have to paint that, yeah. You can absolutely paint it though, depending on the.
So we're thinking design kind of like Waukees, right?
I think that's what our taxpayers would
Like that,
prefer.
Yep.
Concrete is.
Yeah, I'm okay with it, but I wanted to say
Concrete base.
Norwalk. Right?
Now, I think it looks much crappier, but that's okay. It's my opinion.
It's good.
I have a certain aesthetic, but our taxpayers, I think will, if they gets out like, yeah, they spent 500 more than they needed to. Like,
I hear you.
you're all gone.
All right, what's next, Wayne?
The last item is the paint colors, design and logo. There's really endless options here. I did ask ChatGPT to create a couple options. That's why the logo isn't quite right in some of those. It's just a computer generated image. If you were to ask me, I'd probably like those two right there.
I like that. I
I would-
like that.
I would maybe eliminate the city of. I don't know if there's any desire to have the city of.
This is the exact thing that I never thought I would have to make a decision on.
You don't have to,
City
just have it.
council.
I like it.
Only because like, I don't consider I mean, it's like I have a personal opinion, you know, in aesthetic, but it's funny.
I like the one on the left.
Okay.
You don't get to make fun decisions very often. This is a fun one.
Well, but when you do it, it's like, I hope people like that one the best. It's great. That one on the left is unbelievably gorgeous.
Hey, thanks. I think so too. Just cries out. City of Norwalk.
And that logo can be, doesn't have to be, it's close to the full, vertical height of the bowl there, it doesn't have to be that big. Also, we put, okay,
That's perfect.
okay.
They're gonna be on both sides.
So my next question is, we would typically put that logo on two sides, opposite sides. So we've got some options there, north, south versus east, west with the location of Chatham, I'm thinking more east and west side.
East, west.
You don't think you'd consider aiming it towards Norwalk Central?
I thought about that too, kind of to the south, kind of to the southwest.
Depends on if we're gonna have a sponsor or not, then we want some space.
What direction's the other one?
More, because along North Avenue, it's kind of east and west, yeah.
Kind of east and west, north, south.
I think it's north, south.
Is it? Maybe it is more, maybe it is.
It's north, south.
Yeah,
So
I think, yeah, get on the street view, yeah. I was
It's skewed. It's like a north, it's
I
not.
was gonna say, it's kind of, it seems like it's a little skewed, but yeah, it's kind of skewed.
A little bit, isn't it?
There we go.
Luke had a good idea about, you want it to go north, south, so you can see it from the interstate. But will you be able to see it from the interstate from there? From Highway 5?
I believe you will. We can probably come up with something to,
Well, you could probably kind of orient that so you could see it from the interstate and still see it from the central.
You can see the Adams Tower from the interstate, but you wouldn't be able to read the lettering.
Yeah.
From that far, I don't believe.
You can't.
yeah, different locations,
I
it'll
think
be,
east, west.
it'll be visible. Some places it might not be.
That's my opinion.
I didn't have an opinion until I see it. And if I could see it and I could see the lettering and I can't see it, I'm gonna have an opinion.
I vote to delegate that responsibility to city staff.
Need somebody on a big ladder.
Yeah.
But can we get
Hold
the
on.
fire truck out there with a
I
flag?
would like to
in position
delegate it.
So I can see if I can see it.
I want to
That would-
delegate it to
absolutely.
the economic development director.
You know, the tower will be built prior to it being painted the logo, so arguably somebody could assess how far it can be seen away before the logo's painted
Tractor
on.
Painted up there.
Yeah, and even
God bless
I
Darlene.
I know you want us
I know-
to make
I
a
know the
decision,
words.
but I really would. I'm happy to make the financial decision on let's do it this way. But in terms of how the logo should face and like what the paint job should be, I would prefer to just delegate that back to staff. That'd be my preference.
Staff doesn't want that responsibility.
I know they don't, but it's okay. We get to decide.
That's already said this one with the blue.
Do you like the city?
That's what you got, yeah.
If
Yes.
people like
Yeah,
that one
like
the
that.
best,
And you like the
great.
blue and the green or the turquoise and green?
Wait, you in the audience,
That one right
what's your
there.
favorite? You like that blue one?
Yes.
It's very pretty.
Thank you.
You could do a survey just.
Very nice.
No.
We could.
All right.
That's right.
How about Wayne, what's next?
That's it, sir. Thank you.
Great.
All right.
So do you want a motion on it?
Just direction, right?
Give enough direction,
Just
right?
direction? You got it?
Yes.
All right, we'll move on.
He's tired.
He's just gonna look.
We'll probably have some, and when we finalize the design, which will be soon.
We're moving right along.
We can show you a final, elevation of, what it's gonna look like based on the color selected and the materials and everything. So,
So Mayor, my take from what I've heard is that it would be this design right here.
Yes.
The concrete base,
With concrete base.
steel bowl with the lighting that was estimated around $100,000.
Yes.
And that's some kind of an LED color changing lighting.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Item 9, future agenda items. So the purpose of this item is for council to give direction to staff by way of motion. Have items placed on future agendas. This is not for discussion of the merits of that subject matter. It's just to get it on the agenda so we can discuss the merits of the subject matter. So would anybody like to talk or make a motion for Mr. Bordenero's issue?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I feel like we should pay for it though. If we told them we were.
Well, we
gonna
can't
pay for it.
discuss the merits.
We're not going to
Just put it
discuss
on the
merits.
agenda.
that
Never
later.
mind.
So I got a motion and a second to bring Mr. Bordenero's issue to
Yeah.
council meeting. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same. Okay, get that on.
Yeah, the
I'd like to
other,
bring, another agenda item potentially for the future would be that, what we talked about earlier. was
The pedestrian access.
Yeah, there you
at
go.
Norwalk Central. Yes?
Yep.
Very
Okay,
much so.
I have got 4 yeses. I'm not gonna go for a vote.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Anything else? Hearing none. Item 10, council inquiries and staff updates. I'd like to remind everybody that portion of the meeting is much less formal. You may hear some back and forth banter and joking around. We believe this can build camaraderie and cohesiveness between staff and council, but please, we'll keep it a little professional. Jim.
Annexation appeal update is, the hearing on is scheduled for July 8th. Briefing schedules are the individual appealing has, I think, like 12 days now to do his brief. And then state will respond 14 days after that, and then hearing will be start July, and hopefully have a decision from the district court mid-July.
All right. Good deal. George. Ed?
Oh, yeah, got the Highway 28 Study Committee put together. And we're gathering information, and the staff has been pretty good about making inquiries for us, so it's pretty helpful. And I would anticipate being able to move along on that, Mayor, and come back with recommendations to you maybe over the next month or two.
Awesome. All right. Thank you.
Just on the recent state legislations that passed, they did pass a law that restricts our ability to regulate accessory dwelling units. So I'll be working with Jim here in a bit to put together amendments that we can make to our zoning to make sure we're complying with state law. We were trying our best to find ways that fit with Norwalk, but apparently the state thought we should do better.
All right. Thanks. Wayne.
Just wanted to remind everybody the drop-off event at Public Works is Saturday, 7 to 12. That's it.
Got stuff to bring. Chief.
Nothing tonight. Thank you.
All right. Pete.
nothing.
Tony.
Nothing else from me, thanks.
Holly.
I put all my updates in the monthly report, and I do also have a really long report that Art was excited about that I'll save if anybody wants it. But it's all good news from federal down to state of bills and economy and trade and things that the media just doesn't want you to know about. So I've dug it up through legitimate sources, and if anybody wants it, I'm happy to share it.
All right. Adam.
Yeah, I got a super long list, so hopefully everyone's ready.
Okay.
Just kidding, nothing to mayor. Thank you.
Good. Lindsay.
Just real quick, on legislation also, a couple things I was paying attention to is notice requirements. They're standardizing that, which is nice for city clerks. So most things, I think, if not all, are going to 4 and 20 days for notice requirements. fireworks prohibits cities from restricting or limiting use on July 3, 4, and December 31. And retainage on public projects is reducing from 5% to 3%, which is, I don't know how I feel about that. And if you've not signed up for your one-on-one with Luke Nelson, please do so. No. And I'm looking at you down there, Ed.
Yeah, I know. I just wondered if I'd signed up for it.
This needs to be on the record. I tried to do
wanna
that.
walk out today.
Apparently, I was gonna be like, I'm gonna be a super good boy and do it right away. I obviously failed.
Just send me an email with your date if you don't want to do it. Thank
You
you.
can try again. All right. Kaylin? Jason?
You know, I keep talking with people who are very interested in the fact that I'm in city council. And they're like, how's it going? From other towns. And I say, awesome. We've got really good staff and we have really good council who knows what they should talk about and knows what they shouldn't talk about. And they're kind of shocked by it. So I just want to say thanks to my fellow counselors and thanks to all the city staff and for staying focused on the things that matter. Also had the privilege to sit down with Holly and her team, and you know, the fact that they are asking me questions about kind of our Norwalk being a city of neighborhoods, and then they they're gonna do stuff about what I said. I just think you gotta be kidding me. So thank you.
Yeah. Good. Anything else?
Thank you, Wayne, for responding twice to my
You bet.
comments. Appreciate it a lot.
I do have a few items. Wanted to update everybody. We had our DC trip last week. Yeah.
Seems like longer.
I feel like it was productive. You know, instead of talking about some of the detail, I'm just gonna give this short and sweet. Wayne sent me a text message on Friday and said, how did things go in DC? I said, I'll let you know in 10 years. Kind of a joke, but completely serious. It's that type of, as people refer to it, as you're softening the road, you're getting prepared. Our legislators to understand what our future goals are. We talked about the I-435 interstate designation. We talked about a future interstate interchange on Interstate 35.
Who represented that?
These are all DC.
Oh, yeah. Never mind,
Yep.
sorry.
Have met with her before a couple times.
She voted against what?
Yes, which I'd be curious. I'm assuming it's because her main representation area includes a large portion of that. I'm going to guess that some of the Farm Bureau is against it only because they want to have alternative access points, but I'm guessing some of the farmers that use it for ag implements would also be one of her constituents. They might have been allowed for.
Right. I digress, I apologize.
That's okay. It's a good question though. So anyway, the trip to DC was a lot of laying groundwork for what comes in the future. We get a chance to speak with all of our delegates. Yet again, Grassley, very impressive. Wit, charm, humor from that guy when he gets up and speaks, somebody that has been in that business for so long. And I know some people say argue too long. I tell you what, he runs circles around a lot of people in DC. It's impressive. So DC trip went good. I've got a few additional notes here, but I might just send that out in an email if you want to know the details. For Iowa legislation status, so session did end. Lindsay did a good job of updating things that most significantly impacted us. On one hand, it's good that we didn't see a property tax refund bill get passed. In fact, it didn't. The latest proposed bill didn't even come up for a vote. There was a TIF bill that went through the Senate and passed unanimously, but it didn't make it to a vote on the House floor. So two huge impacts on local government. Nothing happened. The good and the bad of that, the bad is nothing happened. But we know, because they said it was their number one priority, the GOP said it was their number one priority to have property tax legislation. The fact that it didn't happen this year, I would bet a lot of money that there will be a bill passed next year. So we just need to be prepared for that. And that's all I have.
Just got a few things, as far as the DC trip. Holly and I went to the Kosovo embassy during that time, met with one of their diplomats, and then, the ambassador actually came back, I think, because we were there and just to talk to us for a little bit. Made it clear, and they were appreciative of us wanting our relationship to be more economic development driven and with police and public safety. So I think they were appreciative of that and are ready for us to start interacting with them again. So I know Holly and Jackie are going to Kosovo in June. Thank you for that trip. I know Zach Nunn is trying to get a trip arranged for this fall. I might go on that one. So, and we might, I don't know, we might find enough, room for police officer to go as well to get that going. So, fireworks, I don't know. I want to make sure I know Lindsay mentioned it. I want to make sure that everybody hears it and knows about it. On July 3rd, July 4th, and December 31st, no city or county in the state of Iowa can restrict the detonation of fireworks between the hours of, on the 3rd and 4th, between the hours of 9 a.m. and 11 p.m. And on the 31st of December, I don't know what the start time is, but they can go until 12:30 in the morning on January 1st. Cities can't restrict those anymore. So just want to get it out there and make it clear. If you have a problem with that, call Representative Samantha Fett or Senator Julian Garrett about those issues. And I just like to remind everybody that Memorial Day is coming up. It's a good time to remember those who have fallen and in war and remember our loved ones that have passed. So good time for that. I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Okay, motion by Cole, seconded by Livingston. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same. We're adjourned 8:18 p.m. Thank you.
From us today.
Thank you. Thanks, Brian. We might get you involved with something else. We might get you involved in something else. All right. Keeper and
Okay, Jackie, thank you.
It will provide,
Probably
about
down
50 PSI at the rate that it's out.
We're,
We're not, the fourth.
yeah, let's do that because actually. That'd be a great idea.
How high? 50 foot.